I am so blessed for the doctors that I had, but just to give you an idea, the person across the hallway from me had the same exact injury, and it was a millimeter apart from where mine was at and was paralyzed from the waist down.
Wow. Okay.
So
Yeah.
pretty heavy stuff from a
Yeah.
standpoint of what was happening. In the hospital, going through it, friends, family, visiting. I mean, when you're sitting in a bed, it's this constant thoughts going through your head. Positive, negative, neutral, all the above. And you reflect a ton. What you've done to this point in your life, what you haven't done, what you want to do moving forward. And that's really what was going through my head at that point. And seeing all the people that came to visit me, family, friends, it is the most gratifying thing knowing that you have that type of support system when something like that happens. And the people that care about you, that reach out to you via phone that you haven't even heard from maybe in years.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's not I haven't heard from this guy and it took this type of injury to hear from you. No. Any type of outreach to me is embedded in my heart at this point. So got the surgery done. And within 15 minutes of getting out of the surgery, I had this term pop into my head. And I was still on so much drugs and stuff. Like I didn't even know which way was up.
Yeah, literally.
So it was 1% better. Just get 1% better.
I'd love to welcome you to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom podcast, a place for ambitious individuals to capture proud moments on who they've become. It's a discussion that finds insights, the highs and the lows on where they have been at stages in their life. A safe space to share and openly talk about their journey. So if you're on a journey yourself and you're wanting to stretch, go further and farther than you've ever thought was possible, mastering your life is something that will connect you with your identity. I'm excited to be welcoming some very interesting guests to add value to your journey. For more information and to stay in the loop on what Master Your Life is all about and gain more value, head over to www.master-your-life.co.uk. Subscribe to my newsletter and stay in the loop. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom. I am your host, Luke Beastall, and I have an international guest on today. His name is Chuck Connors, and as you guys know, I'd love to kind of let you know where we met or where us as guests connect. We met actually through a podcasting group. So online, in a great community, we got chatting through Messenger, a little bit about back and forth on stories. He's got a podcast himself called the 1% Better Podcast. Not trying to plug that in early, Chuck, by the way, but
don't mind it.
Great podcast. I was a guest on his as well. But now it's a bit of a return of favor, but also it's just a story that I think a lot of you guys today are going to take so much away. So he's a father, he's a husband, he's in the tech industry, he's from Philadelphia, and he is creating and mapping out what he's going to be, what he's so passionate about, the 1% journey. But I'm not going to talk much more because I know I also know, and we're going to touch on it today, had a life-changing incident that has completely turned his life around, which I'm super excited for you guys to listen in on as well. So without further ado, Chuck, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Luke, thanks for having me, brother. Hell of an intro, too.
Thanks, man. I was like, how long's that gone? About 1 minute 16. So I didn't want to overdo it, but thank you. And honestly, I appreciate you being here because obviously time zones and spending time with us.
Absolutely. Happy to. So, yeah, man, I think you nailed a lot of it for what I am and what got us to this point. Have been in the tech industry since really getting out of school. but it's evolved over time. For people that are familiar with the tech software industry, I started off as a sales development representative. The acronym a lot of the time you can hear is SDR, BDR. There's a million different names for it, and it's really top of the funnel for pipeline creation to where it's like cold calling, cold emailing, just reaching out to people and getting them interested in whatever you're selling. And it could be software as a service, or other industries tend to use them now as well. But that's what I started off as in HR software. I pivoted a couple of times, went to marketing software as well. And now I'm in auto repair software, but started as just an individual contributor. And like many young professionals, had that pivot point in their life or that question of themselves, where do I go from here? Do I want to just be a sales rep and make as much money as I possibly can? Or do I want to take a different route? And young self, that was really what I had my eyesight on, because you see all the cool gadgets that people get with it when they're making more and more money. But I noticed that I didn't get fulfillment from that. My fulfillment came from helping people and serving others. And I took the leadership route when I was tasked with helping onboard, enable, and coach younger reps than myself. And that was a really good point and helpful for me to decide on what I wanted to do for the next handful of years for myself. So I moved into leadership and got the opportunity to build and scale 2 SDR teams for 2 different marketing technology companies. Now on my third, where I'm at a company called Techmetric. They're out of Houston, Texas in the United States. And it's been an awesome run so far with the growth that we've been going through, and also what I've learned through that time. And really this last decade or so in leadership has taught me a lot about myself, has taught me a lot about others, how they tick, what motivates them, and really has allowed me to figure out what will be next with the next chapter in my life of what I want to do. Still figuring that out, as everybody is. I think everybody always has a plan, but how many times does that plan go 100% according to plan? Probably never. So that's really where I've been at. And as you mentioned earlier, I did have a medical emergency at the end of last year, but like when one door closes, another one opens, and that's what got me to this point.
Oh, listen, Chuck, I absolutely love that, man. And obviously we've chatted beforehand, and we've also stayed in touch, and we follow each other on social media, and we'll get to all the juicy stuff in this. But just on that topic there, where you'd spoken about you was feeling fulfilled and passionate about the leadership and the coaching role, and I guess helping and serving others. Was this somebody in your early stages of development that coached and helped you become a leader? Was anybody there as a role model for you?
You know, surprisingly not. It was more of, I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, so I had to fail more than any of my other siblings without getting that guidance and that coaching. Parents obviously have phenomenal parents, but at the same time, being that first sibling, you kind of go through the trials and errors that you have as a younger sibling, you have the opportunities to get that correction from an older sibling if they're a little wise. So that was where I think it started, playing sports and just having older class athletes that were on my team, whether it was basketball, football, anything that I did. It was just having those older peers and just guiding me to seeing their work ethic, how they approached their day to day. And I just always looked at who is the best, whoever the best was, how they conducted themselves, what were they doing in their free time. And that really drove me to really just want to study it. And then I've been such an advocate of who is the best in sports. So I'm a huge Kobe Bryant guy, always have been, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Michael Phelps, Mike Tyson, anybody that's been at the top of their game. And listen, these people aren't perfect. Like, I don't care about their personal lives. I care about what they did when it came to their craft and how they approached it on a day-to-day basis. And that's really where I went down the rabbit hole as time went on. How do I do these same things? Like, how did they learn about discipline? How did they conduct their time management? How do they stay productive? How do they have this innate focus on one task and staying there for a long period of time without getting burned out? So that was always very interesting to me. And I guess you could say that's a piece of personal development. But at
Sure.
the same time, it has just been like it's a journey that I've been on, and I don't see it ever ending. It's just kind of embedded in me.
Yeah, you can tell as well just from what you shared there that, you're picking out some top hitters right there,
Yeah.
with the guys. But so when did you start to expose yourself to this? Because, if anyone's listening on the podcast today and they go in, do you know what? How did you know that you wanted to be this leader? Or, what actions, how did you put yourself in this position to find, oh, do you know what? This is what I'm really great at and I want to be doing this myself?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. It evolves over time. So I knew I wanted to move into leadership. I was comfortable with talking to people that I was working with or my friends around me and sharing my learnings that way. I'm sure people listening have a group chat with their buddies where they share memes or videos or
Yeah.
inspirational things, all of that. So it started there. In my leadership tenure, it's been the teams that I've helped build and been a part of with getting young professionals into the next evolution of their careers. So a lot of the people that start in sales development really only stay there for a year and a half, 2 years, because it's like door-to-door sales, but over the phone and digitally. And that has a shelf life to it. Some people do it even longer. I think they're a little psychotic, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity to learn a lot of what I was mentioning earlier. So that's where I was putting it out there, so to speak. But I never really put it out there to the masses as a podcast, as a book that I've written and now being on your podcast even, until I had my brain surgery last fall. So for the listeners, I went through a brain surgery unexpectedly. It was an emergency the beginning of September 2024. And really, it started off as any normal day. I work remote. I work in this office where I'm at. And I just started feeling this nasty headache coming on. And I've had migraines since my early 20s. I mean, a million different things can cause it. Dehydration,
Yeah.
stress, or whatever the case. I don't really know where migraines come from. But I felt something different with this one. Kind of felt like a screwdriver was going through my forehead.
Yeah.
I was like, man, something is up. Like, I don't feel right. So my wife was downstairs, luckily. She is a nurse, and she was off that day, luckily. And her daughter was in daycare, so it was just her home. And I said, hey, I'm going to lay down for a little bit. I got a really nasty headache. So I laid down, took some Excedrin, which usually helps with my migraines, and the headache wasn't going away. It was getting worse. And I stood up just to go to the bathroom, throw some water on my face. And I kind of got really dizzy. I'm like, whoa, something's off. So I reached out to my wife downstairs and said, hey, can you come upstairs? So she said, yeah, I'll come up. My haircut appointment just got pushed back. So she had a haircut appointment. Comes upstairs, sees me laying in bed, and she is a neuro ICU nurse. So she starts doing little tests on me, pull my arms, follow my finger, what's your name? And I can't even speak. I'm just nodding along, moving my head back and forth.
Oh,
She's like, okay, we got to call an ambulance. And myself, I'm like, no, we're not calling an ambulance. I'm fine. Typical macho masculinity where you're like, I don't need it. I'm fine. And then a couple more minutes pass and I just felt like a little bit worse. And I'm like, we got to call an ambulance. So within 10 minutes, I'm hearing the sirens, everything going off. And it felt like I blinked. And then our bedroom was filled with 2 police officers, 3 people that were working for the hospital, and they're doing the same exact tests on me. And then they get me to get up, go downstairs. I go in the ambulance, and they're doing the same exact tests on me, get me to go to the hospital. And got there. I started feeling a little bit better, actually. I am so blessed for the doctors that I had. But just to give you an idea, the person across the hallway from me had the same exact injury, and it was a millimeter apart from where mine was at, and was paralyzed from the waist down.
wow. Okay.
So pretty heavy stuff from a
Yeah.
standpoint of what was happening in the hospital, going through it, friends, family, visiting. I mean, when you're sitting in a bed, it's this constant thoughts going through your head, positive, negative, neutral, all the above. And you reflect a ton. What you've done to this point in your life, what you haven't done, what you want to do moving forward. And that's really what was going through my head at that point, and seeing all the people that came to visit me, family, friends. It is the most gratifying thing knowing that you have that type of support system when something like that happens, and the people that care about you, that reach out to you via phone that you haven't even heard from maybe in years.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's not oh, I haven't heard from this guy and it took this type of injury to hear from you. No. Any type of outreach to me is embedded in my heart at this point. So got the surgery done. And within 15 minutes of getting out of the surgery, I had this term pop into my head. And I was still on so much drugs and stuff. Like I didn't even know which way was up.
Yeah, literally.
So it was 1% better. Just get 1% better. Started being able to collect my thoughts, finish my thoughts. And they weren't sure if it was a stroke or anything. And for listeners, I'm 35 years old. So I'm not an old bloke in the scheme of things. So hearing that word stroke or something like that was very kind of like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
So they did some scans, and I'm sitting in the emergency room with my wife and my dad at that point, who found out, who was local, and he was in there, and we're just kind of chopping it up, talking, and the doctors come back in after the tests that were performed on me, and they're like, hey, we found something on your brain. And right when I heard that, your immediate feeling is this heat through your body that is really hard to put into words and replicate. And if anybody's ever gone through it, you may know what I'm speaking about, but it felt like I was put on broil and put in an oven through my entire body. Like I'm getting the worst news of my life about right now.
Yeah.
And it was immediate tears, immediate shaking, like just like a lot. And even like revisiting it right now, like, because it's been just about 6 months since this happened. So fairly recent, very blessed I'm here, and I'll get to how we got here. They said, look, we're going to keep doing tests. We'll figure this out, see what's what. Doctor left the room. And in that moment, I had this, holy shit, man, I'm 35. I have so much ahead of me in life that I haven't even done yet. And that was the thought that I had at that moment.
Of course.
But within 10 minutes, my feet started shaking. And I was like, that's what's going on right now. Like, I'm not doing this. And then my legs started shaking. And I'm like, I'm really not doing this right now. And probably 2 seconds later, my arms started curling back and my head went back. And the last thing I said was, what the F? And
Yeah.
I woke up 2.5 days later from a coma that I was in. And at that point, I was in a completely different hospital. I was in the University of Penn, which is where my wife works. She transferred.
Yeah.
She's at a new hospital now.
Okay.
But transferred, but she was still there at that point. I was on her floor in one of the rooms that she served for almost a decade. And I had my parents around, my siblings, doctors, and I'm like, how did I get here? It was like,
yeah, one of those,
like blinked and you're like, how did I get to this point? So they told me I had a massive seizure, and they put me into an induced coma so that I could recover through that time. But I was medevaced from the hospital that I was at immediately to the hospital that I was now in. And that was like a whoa moment. But there was closure and clarity that came from it, because as I was under, they did more tests on me and found out what I had. And what it was is called a cavernous malformation. And I had no idea what that was before going through what I went through. And for listeners, what a cavernous malformation is a cluster of blood vessels that is in your brain that never just fully forms. So anybody can have it. It's kind of like an aneurysm to a degree. And what happened was it bled just a little bit, just a tiny bit. And that's what caused all of it. So your first question is, where do we go from here? So they needed time for my brain to settle down from the trauma that I went through in my body. And I was scheduled for surgery the following week to remove it. And what I was told about it was a small incision will be put into your brain and we will remove it. And I'm like, okay, will I be fine? What's the deal? And they're like, we truly don't know. Like, that's the scary part about anything brain related. It's all hypothetical to a degree. Like, they know a ton. I'm not going to discredit the medical world. Like, they I am so blessed for the doctors that I had, but just to give you an idea, the person across the hallway from me had the same exact injury, and it was a millimeter apart from where mine was at and was paralyzed from the waist down.
Wow. Okay.
So pretty heavy stuff from a
Yeah.
standpoint of what was happening. In the hospital, going through it, friends, family, visiting. I mean, when you're sitting in a bed, it's this constant thoughts going through your head. Positive, negative, neutral, all the above. And you reflect a ton. What you've done to this point in your life, what you haven't done, what you want to do moving forward. And that's really what was going through my head at that point. And seeing all the people that came to visit me, family, friends, it is the most gratifying thing knowing that you have that type of support system when something like that happens. And the people that care about you, that reach out to you via phone that you haven't even heard from maybe in years.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's not I haven't heard from this guy and it took this type of injury to hear from you. No. Any type of outreach to me is embedded in my heart at this point. So got the surgery done. And within 15 minutes of getting out of the surgery, I had this term pop into my head. And I was still on so much drugs and stuff. Like I didn't even know which way was up.
Yeah, literally.
So it was 1% better. Just get 1% better. 1% better. And the term has been thrown around everywhere. Like it's nothing new. It's just something that I've used in the past when it comes to work or my personal life, health, fitness, a hobby that I want to get better at, or anything. Just get 1% better. So it popped in my head and I had no idea why or what I wanted to do with it, but it just was there. So I started going through the recovery in the hospital, taking my first steps, everything. Said the surgery went really well. And I get out of the hospital and within the first few days, not even within, in the first few days, my anxiety and panic attacks were through the roof. I never had panic attacks or really bad anxiety, but it was to the point where if my wife touched me, I was like, don't touch me. I'm really just on edge and not feeling good, and rightfully so. But I needed an outlet for all that because I felt a lot of PTSD from what I just experienced and went through. It was really hitting me. And there was really nobody there. Like there was people coming and visiting and saying, you look great, yada, yada, for what, and I'm like, yeah, look great, but I'm mentally a mess right now. And my cousin, shout out to her, she said, start journaling. I was like, okay, start journaling. I'm like, how do I do that? Because I've never really done it before. So I opened my laptop and just started typing. And it was really the story, of what happened. That's where I started. And I'm like, I still want to type. I still want to keep going. And I started just saying, you know what helps me or helps my reps and my day-to-day? It's time management and staying disciplined. And then I started getting into accountability. And then I started talking about my health, of how much protein I take into my body and how I like to exercise and lift weights and go for runs and walks and be mindful and sit there and really take a deep breath and be present. So all these things started just unraveling. And I started tying them back into the 1% philosophy. This has just been a cultivation over the years that has been building, that I've been telling my reps just for what at the time was kind of just what was expected of me. But then I started realizing this is something here. And it's not anything groundbreaking, but it is my story and what has got me to this point. Digital detoxing, how that has helped. Having faith to a higher purpose and a higher belief of someone that you can talk to anytime and there's no judgment. It's just you and opening yourself. This, I guess you could say, document, because it wasn't a book. It was just a document that was ongoing. And I had nothing I could do, Luke. It was sitting in my backyard because the weather was still nice. Sitting in my backyard, just listening to birds chirp and wind blow, all this type of stuff. And it was just time to write or type. And before I knew it, I had 45,000 words written. And I'm like, this is pretty insane. Let's put a book together. And that's where 1% Better, the book, came. And as I was going through the publishing process, I started thinking, like, let's do an extension of it. Let's roll this into a podcast and just talk to all different types of people that enjoy these types of topics and push for it and are masters in their own field. And that's where we're at. And then kind of the coaching is spawned from that. It's still coming into fruition, but as I use the term 1% better, I'm in no rush. It's just, I write this affirmation down all the time now. It's like, I'm proud of my progress no matter how small it is.
Nice.
So very long-winded, but
no, listen,
that's me.
Listen, man, like, that is epic. I mean, there were so many questions whizzing around in my mind as you was talking, which we'll pick out parts that I just would love to go deeper on and for the audience to, I guess, feel the moments and those emotions at those certain points. But I just want to say, before we do that, I mean, I have said this to you already. Listen, man, you are a true inspiration to be able to actually come back from that setback. You know, I mean, life changes setback. And obviously, I know you've got great support around you as well. But seriously, man, it's awesome what you're doing. Yeah, business is on its way, man. Like, the business is on its way. Whether that comes, like you say, 1% better every day stage, or it just comes all at once. Just what you said about the whole point of failure and, you know, ups and downs, and, you know, our life when striving in the personal development world is non-linear. You know, it's never going to go, like you say, to plan, no matter how much you plan. Look, man, I just want to share something that I took from an insight from, and I want to share this with you guys listening as well, because this is what I had taken away from just you sharing that story. Is, look, that what happened to you was a life scare, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't wish it on anybody. But what it did, Chuck, it's though it kind of like given you a new life in a way that just took you away from reality, normal life, fast-paced, chaos, the normal day-to-day, like you're in your routine, you know, your leadership role, etc.
Yep.
And then all that just stops. And then it's like you've just been put somewhere like in nature outside with the birds chirping. It's like you stripped away back to the basics of, well, I know I can't work properly, but here I am with a pen and piece of paper. I don't want to not do anything because I'm so into personal development. Then you've got somebody who knows you, like family member. You've got loads of space. You've slowed right down. So time has slowed down for you. And you sat there in the present moment, and it's like, I've never, ever had this opportunity in my life.
No.
I'll never get this opportunity ever. And look what's come from that, by that space, that slowing down. That's epic, man.
So much. Because you think you do stuff. So for me, I was meditating before my brain surgery and that event happened. I was conscious of my health as far as like loading up good eats, fasting, trying to do all the right things, but I feel like it was 10x or even 20x after I went through it, because you're more conscious of the little things and how important it is. Like sitting down for dinner with my girls and just being able to be there and be present and having that gratitude of being able to do that. Or, man, I'm able to sit outside right now and enjoy this weather and be able to feel and stand up on my own without someone to come and grab me, or being able to see my family again. Because when I had that go back moment, when I went into that seizure, I was like, oh, this is it. Done. It's a wrap. And this might scare people, but I was like, if that's dying, like, I don't fear dying at all at this point. It's the suffering that people don't want to go through. They don't want to suffer.
No.
Nobody wants to suffer. But the dying part, I was just like, if that's it, okay. So it took away this fear in me of not giving. Are we allowed to curse on here?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I don't give a fuck about anybody's opinions of what I want to pursue and what I care about. Now, am I going to be reckless and go rob a bank and things like that? No. But what it did to me was, if you have aspirations or you want to pursue something, go do it. Like, just be patient with yourself over it. Like, I'm not trying to conquer Rome in a day. But I do know that if I put the work in every single day to write a book, to build a podcast, to build a coaching business, to do speaking events, whatever the case may be, if I want to get better at golf, which I love, if you put in the time, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of what are you dedicating yourself to? What do you care about? And back to your question, for me, it puts you in tune with what's most important in life. And for me, it is fulfillment for yourself. Like what gets you jazzed up in the morning to where you're excited, but also spending time with your loved ones. I freaking love being with my little girl, even when she's being nuts. And when I got out of the hospital, she smacked me in the face. She was a little over 1 year old at that point. So it's like, she has no idea. But at the same time, like even these chaos moments, still love them because it's like, it could have been gone so fast or it was gone. So I think a lot about that type of stuff. I'm conscious of it. Even the day-to-day job that I have the opportunity to help build other people's careers right now. A great example is one of these guys that was working on my team. He was since promoted to a new role. Before that, not that he was broke by any means, but things were tight, so to speak. And he had goals of being able to buy a new car, being able to take his kid out of daycare every single day of the week. And he got that opportunity because he put in the work on the team, learned the things that I focus on with my reps, and he was promoted to a new title, new department. And I had the chance to catch up with him last month when we were in Houston. He's like, man, changed my life. And hearing that is like the coolest freaking thing on the planet, that you can hear that genuinely come from somebody when they just put like their hand on your shoulder and they're like, hey, you changed my life. So what that did was just reinforce all the stuff that I've done from the years of being really good with discipline, your time management, getting what fulfills you and brings that purpose out, and really being accountable with what you're doing. And I just want to continue to spread that. And anybody that wants to be a part of it can be. I think that's the great part about the world that we're in right now. We can connect with anybody. And if you want to be a part of it, let's rock.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. And you're absolutely right as well. Like anybody can be a part of it. We are so connected in every single way possible. Like, look, here we are on this podcast episode, streaming it in 2 different countries. You know, is crazy with that. But just everything that you said there, you can tell it comes with meaning and it comes, you know, with purpose. But do you know what? Where you said there that you genuinely thought that you was gone, that your life was done, you know, in those moments when you was in the hospital bed, not really, I guess not much was going on up in the mind because obviously he was drugged up and stuff. You said that there was positive thoughts, there was negative thoughts, and there was neutral thoughts. Could I ask? I want to ask because people will be interested in the negative ones. What was the positive thoughts?
Positive thoughts, I think the North Star easy one was I'm here, I'm alive.
Okay.
Other positive thoughts, I would say the support system, coming and going, seeing that door open and not knowing who is going to be behind the door as it opens, and seeing that it's my cousins or my aunts and uncles or some of my best friends that I grew up with. Other positive moments that there was tears, but some of my best friends since I grew up with, since we were little kids, and beating the shit out of each other, fist fights, sports, going through highs and lows together, brothers of mine that aren't blood, but closest thing to it, and them crying, seeing me like that.
Yeah.
But seeing that emotion pour out and that how much, and not to sound selfish, but how much they care about me was an unbelievable feeling.
Yeah, of course, man.
Being able to see my little girl come in, and she was so confused. Like,
Sure.
It was once she started, because, you know, like once they're a little over 1, they start becoming pretty conscious of what's going on, seeing their surroundings and knowing something's up if something's a little bit out of whack. Because I do think as much as we can see in this physical world, there's a lot of stuff we can't see as far as energy and things like that. And I won't go down that rabbit hole, but those were the big things. And my wife, my rock, with everything. She's a nurse. So her having that ability to answer questions, understand the nurses, like think about how many people are probably listening and they've been at the doctor's office and they're regurgitating or they're saying something to them. And it's like, you're nodding your head like you understand. And maybe you do understand a little bit, but it doesn't fully like grab on, like to where like you leave, you're like, what they just tell me. For her, I get all that. She's like my spark notes, and anything that goes in one ear and out the other of me, she's got it. So having that was huge. Negative wise was what a lot of people deal with, the fear of the unknown, what's going to be next. But it didn't really cross my mind too much. It was more of here and there, but it didn't cross my mind too much because I was just so grateful to be alive. It was like, dude, this was almost all gone. Like
did
the
you
fact
feel?
that, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, did you feel like life was done at that point, or did you feel like it's over? I'm giving up. I'm giving in.
I felt it before the seizure.
Really?
Before the seizure, when they said something's on your brain, because my first thought was cancer, as everybody thinks it. Something is going to cut me down and I'm done. And that was the first thing that went through my head was, man, this is it. And then I went into that seizure and it's like, you're out of control. Like there's nothing you can do. So when I woke up and then got that clarity that, hey, we know what's on your brain, to me, I was like, I don't even care about the odds of what is going to be after surgery. I was just like, I'll roll with it. But there was still, I think I was in that, there's like these phases when people do have actual cancer where they go through that denial, and then I forget what they all are, but I've just heard them through the years. The first one is like kind of denial. So I guess I would say I was in that denial phase in the hospital, and I got out of surgery, and that's when it really hit me, the negative thoughts. Like when I got home and feeling the panic, like not being able to sleep because they're sticking you every hour for blood and making sure that your head's working to a degree. Like you're waking you up on every hour, on the hour. So you're not sleeping. It's not like you're in a hospital. You're like, oh, I'm getting rest. So I didn't really rest for like 2.5 weeks when I was there. So when I got out and then I'm in this restful environment, it almost felt like you shook a jar of ants and like the jar is now still, but they're going crazy. So that's what I felt when I got home, and I had this uncomfortable feeling of like, I got to go through this healing. And I had staples all across my head where they sewed me back up and trying to deal with that. And then one little touch like stung. And so I was really at a point of just vulnerability, weak, where I've been in this, I wouldn't say stoic mindset, but man of the house, try to be strong for people around me, not show crazy emotion, and a space of strength where you could come to me. And I didn't have that. I had to let myself go pretty much. So there was a lot of emotion that just would go through me where I would just start crying out of nowhere and just sitting there and just like, I was so grateful. And I'd said this to my wife, her name's Katie. I would say, Katie, I'm so happy to be here, but I'm so miserable right now. Like, what is going on? She's like, you just had brain surgery. Your brain got shaken up, all these things. And then I'm on new medication for the seizure that I've never been on before. So it was a lot of just quick change. And if anything, it just taught me like, be very, very understanding of what other people go through in their lives. And you never know what somebody's going through mentally. Like you don't see the other side of it. So, and then my work life, I was out for a little over a month. And that hindsight now is that I probably should have took a little bit more time off, but that's me. I'm in go mode constantly. And I think that's where the book really helped. And writing was allowing me to be in go mode without having to do a lot. Like I couldn't pick up my daughter. I couldn't drive, still can't drive until next month, which I kind of like having the chauffeur, which is my wife. Don't tell her that. But also not being able to do like handy work around the house, cut the grass, do things that are enjoyable in my free time. So I wasn't able to do any of that. So being able to have that outlet of just pouring my brain out, no pun intended, and of all my thoughts and everything that was going through was the therapy that I really needed. So positive, I think those are very obvious. Negative, to a degree, I'm still processing it. Still processing what I went through and what people around me. I think a thought that really went through my head, Luke, was one that I didn't even know, that I wasn't even there. And what I mean by that is when I was under with the tube down my throat, I didn't see my parents, my siblings, their significant others crying, looking at me like, is my brother, is my son, is my friend going to be a vegetable after this? Like, am I able to have a conversation with him? So that thought went through my head so much going through that. So that to me was like the most negative thing of like, hated seeing people go through that because of me.
Yeah, of course, man, of course. Yeah, it's, I mean, how does it, have you spoken about it like this with anyone or with many people since? Because obviously it's still, like say, relatively fresh, isn't it?
Yeah, I've spoken with it with my siblings. I'm very close with my brother and my sisters and even my parents. We're Irish Italian, big, loud Catholic family, and we share our emotions, whether they're good or bad, a lot of the time, and
That's good.
it's good though to get it out of interior. And yeah, I've shared it with them. My wife and I, we communicate really well, and I think that's why our relationship has been so healthy and always will be healthy. Is when there's a problem, we talk about it, and we don't like to go to bed until it's solved. But yeah, I haven't done it. This is the first time I've done it on a actual platform and really spoke about it. I spoke about it a little bit on my podcast, just a 15-minute episode, but I didn't go into crazy detail about what I exposed on here. So this is a first. This is a first for people to really understand the story, what went through my head, how I thought about things, how I continue to think about things. And I think the one thing that I haven't got to with this entire story is that I truly believe that I'm a winner, regardless if I lose at something, quote unquote, lose or fail at something. I convinced myself that I will always win at whatever I put my mind to if I put the time in and work at it. So for me going through that, I was like, I will figure this out. I'll get through it. And I told myself, the inner self, fucking just put your head down and get through this. Like, just use your support system, trust what you're doing, and you'll get through this. And I'm still getting through it. Like, it could be 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Like, it's a life-changing thing. But the piece that I told myself is that I'll get through it and I'll adapt to whatever I have to adapt to and go from there.
I mean, I can feel it from you because obviously you're very much into your personal development, Chuck, and just, I wanted to allow that space for you to share that because...
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I really appreciated you sharing it so openly as well because, as I was listening, and I'm sure the listeners will agree, you do start visioning visually in your mind what that, I mean, I don't know what it would look like, obviously, because, I haven't been through that or seen somebody go through that, but I'm sure there's people out there, like, it's a very, very scary time. Fear is probably at a 20x, it's at its most for everybody that's coming through that door to be around you and see you. But the fact that now it's in a way made you even more fearless and that, you've come through this, like you say, you have got through this. You've now got to a point in this new life where even the old life or the Chuck before this, brain surgery and stuff, it still was in the 1% better mindset, was still, heavily focused on all those things. But now it's like you're in a new world, but of 1% better.
Yeah, so there's a movie that I think a lot of people have seen, maybe not, but it's called Yes Man with Jim Carrey.
Yes.
And it's where he says no to everything in the beginning of the movie, and I'm not under a magnified glass where he said yes to, like he has done with saying yes to everything. But what that experience did do to me was be willing to be uncomfortable more often. And I thought I embraced that before, But when you go through a life-altering thing that really, really shakes everything up, things you care about a lot less. There's a lot of things that you don't care about as much that used to piss you off or irritate you before. There's things that you think that you're going to not care about anymore after it, but they still nag you just because of your DNA and how you're structured. Like if I was like, I don't care about losing, so to speak, or not hitting our number since I work for a company right now, or even if I have my own business, not hitting a certain number, I know that stuff's still going to piss me off because that's that competitive side of me. I didn't lose that. If anything, I feel like the important things have just been put out there more that I care about. And I'm not afraid to expose that for so-and-so's opinion or whatever. If it doesn't shake me.
Yeah, you said this earlier on, like about the curse, like I don't give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
So that, but what I'm hearing, the word is awareness. It's so those thoughts, it's like you've got it, you catch it, you feel it and you know about it. And then you can also, whatever's going on inside, you're aware of it on the outside as well. Like some people are aware of it on the inside, but bypassing the outside, but obviously who am I going
to offend by telling people this? If I expose myself like this, do they think like me? No, they don't think like you. Nobody thinks like you.
Yeah.
Nobody has the same exact thoughts as you. There's a lot of similarities between people, and that's how people find hobbies and work relationships and significant others. But nobody thinks like you. Like you, of your DNA, of how you were brought up, how you went through scenarios and how you experienced things to get to this point. And that's a big thing another big thing to what you're talking about, Luke, the awareness is like, you're at this point for a reason. You're at this moment for a reason. Trust the moment that you're in and where you're at. Like on my podcast, I just had on 25-year-old CEO who sold multiple businesses, more successful than any 25-year-old that I've ever spoken to in my entire life. And I could leave that call and be like, man, I am like a fraction of what this guy is. But at the same time, I look at it as he's exactly where he needs to be. I'm exactly where I need to be at. I have my aspirations and where I want to get to things. And there's a billion different ways to the top of the mountain. Whatever that top of the mountain is for you, monetary, spiritually, physically, anything what you want it to be. There's a million and one different ways to get there.
Absolutely, man. And I think just there about keeping it on your journey, right? And I think this leads on well to where I'm going. And I know you spoke about this guy conversation. Obviously, you spoke a bit about like they're just in that talk there about comparison and obviously not comparing. Just before we get onto the 1% journey where you're looking to take your business and stuff like that in this community that you're building, what do you feel is the number one thought, or what do you feel is the number one reason that people do hold themselves back from trusting where they are and where they want to be?
Great question. I think it's a big combination, actually. Fear of failure is one.
Yeah.
What do people think about me, or what will they think about me if I put myself out there? And that's a world we're in right now, especially with social media and sharing your thoughts. How will people take it? I also think people fear success too.
They do.
What if it works?
Yeah.
What if I have to live up to this? Like, a lot of people think that music artists and athletes, some of them dream of getting to that point of the pinnacle. But if you listen to a lot of interviews and stuff, some of them never even imagined being in that type of world, nor do they want to be in that type of world. So that fear of success is a real thing. And that can hold people back too. I also think not having the right mentors and mentors don't have to be someone you know personally. It could also be the books you read, the videos you watch, the people that you pay attention to. That plays a massive, massive part in what you're trying to get to. And I think it's actually really underrated with how much that plays a role. Like, what thoughts are you putting in your head? So building that foundation, I think, is extremely important for a lot of people. How are you learning discipline to get to where you want to be at? How are you holding yourself accountable? It's like 90-some% people fail at their New Year's resolution. It doesn't happen because they don't want it. They just don't have the groundwork that gets you there. So I think that's a lot of the stuff that holds people back. And then I think the last thing, there's probably more. Once we're going to hop off, we're going to be like, man, I forgot to tell Luke that.
Yeah, literally.
But I think the last big thing that at least comes to mind right now is, how do I want to put this? Just not being tough, like willing to go through the grind. Like the first sign of adversity, it holds you back. How much stuff have you been through where you've been punched in your face and knocked down, and it's like, okay, I could give up right now, or do I keep going forward? That is the biggest thing. Just losing, failing, whatever we want to call it, whatever, they're all synonymous with one another, and not being willing to just say like, okay, it's part of it. It's part of the journey. Like everybody thinks up and to the right just is a straight linear line. No, it goes down, up, around, circles, goes back, pivots, goes forward. But if you zoom out and look at it over X amount of time, are you going up and to the right through all those different paths that you're creating? It's like you're learning more about yourself. And I think that's the most important thing out of everything, is like you doing the podcast, me doing the podcast, the book, speaking events, coaching. You're learning about yourself through that time too, of like what makes you tick and what gets you jazzed up. So be self-aware with that and find what gets you, and then be magnetic towards it.
Yeah, I think you've just hit so much gold there, Chuck, in what you've shared. I love the piece of obviously what holds people back. I absolutely agree. I like the actual element where you said people fear success, because you don't hear that much, because success seems to be obviously more of a positive sort of twist. But you're absolutely right. Like people fear it. Like, oh my God, what if it does work? What do I do? Where do I go? Your identity changes. It's like, it can happen very quick as well sometimes. But I think what you just said there about you are figuring it out as you go along with your awareness, like you just said, the 1% journey being, okay, the 1% journey started out, obviously it was a bit of a life-changing incident, but you still did a little bit before, but I guess it sped it up for you, where you was like, right, okay, here's the journal, here's the book, now the book leading on to, actually I want to expand this further, so I'm going to go into doing a podcast. Now the podcast has led to a public speaking gig, then the public speaking gig might lead to everybody wants some sort of like, where can I find more of you? Where can I have more exposure of you? Because I like you, Chuck. I love what you're doing, man. Then you've obviously got maybe a program, maybe you're building a community. So, but all of this, I guess, what I'm trying to relay to the guys listening in as well is that nobody's said what works and what doesn't and where you should go and what you should do. This has happened by just being and doing a 1% shift every single day.
Yeah, just trying that improvement any way you want to call it. Like that is the most important thing. Just being curious, like naturally curious of how to be better at life. And better is subjective too. Like don't get it twisted. Being better at something is so subjective. Like what is better to me is different, better for you. Some people want that new car. Some people want that new house. Some people want that more time with their loved ones that they don't have because their job has them driving 45 minutes to an hour to and from work every day. So they want that time. Like, what is that currency for you that you truly want? Like everybody thinks it's the dollars. I love dollars. I think there's a love for dollars because it's an enabler for you to do other things in your life. But my currency is my time. That is my asset more than anything, is like,
oh man, you're on my wavelength here. Woo!
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm with you.
Makes me tick.
Yeah. Oh, listen, mate. Tick, tick. That's time, innit?
No pun intended. Yeah.
I know. I was going to say, listen, man. You're punning it tonight, but no, literally, that's a community I built around time. So no, listen, mate. I love that. So I'd love to ask you, because obviously you're reeling off a lot of sort of personal development stuff, and you can tell that you've done the work, especially with what you're sharing and how you actually put it out there, which is brilliant, by the way.
Thank you.
Where would you want to see the 1% journey at the end of 2025? Like, what would make it a dream for you? Like, dream come true.
Question. Well, at the end of 2025, dream come true, that's tough because I don't look at it being done at the end of 2025. I look at it being kind of a lifestyle thing of continuing to go. But if I had to put it in a quantitative perspective, what do I want to see this year?
Yeah, sure.
I want to continue to have great guests on the podcast and have great conversations. I want the people that need it to listen to it and find something that helps them get 1% better in any way, shape, or form. And hearing, as we were talking about that commodity or that currency, a currency for me is when someone says, your book was unbelievable. Like, that helped me so much that I wasn't even thinking about a digital detox and putting my phone down after 7 p.m. or at the dinner table and keeping that away. And you and I have talked about this, not having it in the bedroom.
Yes.
And being present more often than not. Like, everybody that's listening right now, next time you're in a restaurant or you're waiting in line, think about how many people are just holding their phone and looking at it because they don't want to look around and interact with other people.
Yeah.
Like, that is this one anecdotal thing. But for 2025, I want to continue to see book sales, not because of the dollars. I just want to see people taking the opportunity to read that book because there are some really helpful things in there that will help people, not because it's like there's tons of books out there that you can get the information that's in the book that I wrote. But from a standpoint of just understanding my philosophy on things, how I look at it, how it could potentially help you. So that's the book, that's the podcast. As I mentioned before, I do have a speaking event in May. I would love to get more of those, see more, speak to people, have them come up to me after, like kind of this, I wouldn't say manifesting, but seeing people coming up to me after and letting me know that really impacted them.
Yeah.
Building the 1% better brand too, doing more coaching outside of just the firm that I work for, helping people out there that want to apply this type of mindset and approach to what they do in a day-to-day basis, whether it is their personal life, their professional life, their spiritual life, anything like that. That's really 2025. And for me, just as a whole, I don't ever want to lose myself of why I care about this stuff. I care about it because I know that it really, truly helps people when they are self-aware, when they are present with the people around them, when they take the time to really get in tune with the discipline side of life. And discipline doesn't mean not having fun. Discipline means just having confines of understanding, like, okay, I'm waking up at this time. This is my morning routine. This helps me be healthier. This helps me be more physically intact. It allows me to be more present. All these little things are connected. They're all connected with one another. And when you pull out one piece of the Jenga, it starts getting a little shaky. So how can we make sure that's all intact with one another?
Man, like I love that. And the thing is just going back to what you said right at the beginning, Chuck, where you said about, it's not going to sort of be finished. I think it was just more, what is your vision for this year, right?
Yeah.
I think the conversations that you're going to have with these guys on your podcast as well. And I think it's just, that's going to naturally build what you want to build anyway. It is conversations, it's community, it's connection. And I think just even hearing your story today, I know it's only a snippet of what's been going on, but man, it's been deep, man, but it's been good. It's been really, really good hearing it out. And I think the 1% better is a journey that's going to not only evolve, but I think it's going to, like you say, have a very, very positive impact on people's lives through your philosophy, through your perspective and awareness on things that you think can, genuinely help people. And we're getting towards the end of the episode already.
Wow.
I know. But yeah, this is kind of like a good concluding question that I do love to ask every guest. Chuck, what does mastering your life mean to you?
Hit me with the big guns. Mastering your life. There's different seasons. There's different chapters of your life. I think it's breaking it down by those chapters and being present within those chapters and trying to be the best version of yourself during those chapters. Let's take an example. So I'm not retired or anything like that of that nature, but different seasons or chapters I have gone through my life as school, an early professional, now being a little bit of a seasoned professional, and looking at those chapters and saying, was I the best version of myself during that time? The answer is probably going to be no if you're looking back on it. But the one thing you can control is what you're doing in the present moment. So mastering your life is right now, 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 now. Like in those moments, being in tune as you possibly can with the people around you and leaving really good lasting impressions for who you are. Because I love this. I don't even know if it's a quote, but this line of just thinking about how are people talking about you when you're not around? Not that you care, but
Yeah,
like,
I know his name.
man, Luke really listens to people well. Luke really cares about other people. Luke, like, he spends such great time with his family. Luke does a great job with his clients, like all those types of things. Like, how are you leaving an impact at that season or chapter in your life? So that's what mastering life means to me, is like, just be the best version of yourself at any waking point, because going back to my experience and what I went through, it's going like that. So take advantage of every opportunity that you get.
Yeah. Sure. Listen, gold, mate. Gold. So good. And thank you as well for
Thank
sharing
you.
that. No. The present moment is absolutely the right now. I mean, again, guys listening, check in with yourself right now, how you're feeling, what you've really taken away, from hearing Chuck's story and his journey. And look, I'm sure there's people who's checking in on this episode now or even later down the line throughout the year are going to want to connect with you, Chuck. I know that for a fact. They're going to want to listen to your podcast as well and follow your 1% journey. So where can the listeners and the viewers follow you?
Yeah, appreciate it, bud. There's a couple different spots. So there's my Instagram, 1%. So it's at the number 1 and then percent written out, and then better with no E's in it. So it's TTR and then an underscore. The other way you can follow, same exact way it's written out on my YouTube channel. So all my podcast episodes are recorded just like this and put on my YouTube channel. So there are 2 different ways that you can connect with me, and I'm happy to connect with anybody, talk with you. It doesn't have to be over a podcast or anything. I just love talking with people and understanding their story too. But they're the main channels that you can reach out to me. I do have my personal Instagram account too, which I never mind connecting with people on, which is just Chuck Connors, basic as it gets. But yeah, man, those are the areas you can reach me. And LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, just Chuck Connors.
Man, I'll have to connect with you on LinkedIn. But the 1% better though, don't worry, I'll put in the show notes so people can know with the spelling. Because I know sometimes people have words and they hyphenate, take letters out. So don't worry, man, we'll get that all
Appreciate
sorted.
it.
But what about your book? What about if people wanted to purchase your book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Okay.
Also on the website as well. I'll give you the link for the website, but Amazon is just 1% better. It's the number 1% better from brain surgery, the mastering life one day at a time. And it's on there. And you could get hard copy, paperback, what is it, Kindle?
Yeah.
Kindle. And then I'm actually in the process of getting it done via audiobook too, with a guy that I work with who has an angel-like voice that is very good for that type of stuff. So that's in the works for 2025 too. So we can add that to the list of things that I'm excited about.
Epic, man. No, yeah. So good. Well, look, that'll all be there for the guys. So many different ways that they can find out more about what you do and to connect with. Well, Chuck, I love that, and how open you are to have conversations with people. And I will say this, just as a bit of a conclusion point of this, is that, you know what, guys, if you are wanting to improve yourself and be on a bit of a personal development journey, as much as it is good to sit behind a screen or sit behind a book and look at something, you can't beat having a conversation with somebody that either is on the same page, not on the same page, but same mindset, same alignment, or you're totally different paths, but you've got similar values. I just feel that is a big thing that I've taken away just from hearing you today as well.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me.
No, listen, Chuck, I'm just also going to throw that straight back at you, man, and say thank you so much for spending time with us today. And I'm really looking forward to this episode hitting the platforms.
Likewise. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode. If you found this useful and it's provided value to you, if you don't mind, go onto my channel, tap follow, and keep in the loop for more podcast episodes like this. And if you want to go one step further, please leave us a positive review. It would mean the world to us, and it would help spread the message to many more people. And also, if you want to go that one step further again, tag us on socials, drop us a message. I will always respond. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.